For those of you who've been celebrating Mother's Day, I hope you either have had a great Mother's Day or you are having a great Mother's Day. We are about to go and see our kids because they just texted that their kids have arrived. Actually, one grandson with his girlfriend has arrived. So it's kind of wacky how each generation looks at their other as kids. So we say, oh, kids just texted and kids just arrived. And we're talking about two different generations. It's kind of weird, right? Don't know what's going to happen when the next one comes along. Well, we'll see how that goes. Today's reading is a little different, but it's good because it shows us another way to look at things. You know, everything that we do, see, feel, think, etc. There's different ways of looking at it. You know, somebody who loves fishing looks at fishing in a certain way. Somebody who loves rock climbing a lot, like I used to do, looks at that in a certain way. Or climbing mountains, it's just different. You know, some of my friends and one of my prayer partners actually, you know, are deeply into motorcycles. I said deeply into, they ride them quite a lot. So there are different ways of looking at it. I mean, motorcycles really don't interest me. Well, they just don't, you know. So what I'm saying is that there's lots of ways of looking at things. And today, Reverend Ryan is looking at sadness, which often we try to avoid talking about things or thinking about things that aren't exactly good and uplifting and everything. Well, some people like to do it, but most of us, we try and push all this stuff to one side or bury it. Opening the door to sadness. I love this quote from Leonard Cohen. I've heard it many times. It's from Anthem. There is a crack in everything. That is how the light gets in. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later. Ernest Holmes in Spiritual Awareness on page 6 says, spiritual experience comes in the stillness of the soul. When the outer voice is quiet, it is a quickening of the inner being to an eternal reality. It's really a little bit odd that this quote comes up today because our exercise, if you like, our mission for the week given to us this morning by Reverend Jesse Jennings, senior minister, and usually the main speaker at Creative Life Spiritual Center, says, spend some time in the stillness. This week, if you choose to take on the mission, spend some time in the stillness. How about that? So it is a quickening of the inner being to an eternal reality. Experience comes in the stillness of the soul. Reverend Ryan says, I don't know how you see it, but for me, sadness is one of those sneaky emotions. You can be going about your day, enjoying a cup of coffee, maybe reading a book or watching an episode of Downton Abbey, not me, and then, bam, it hits. A word, a sight, a smell. Any one of these can unramp for sadness. Often, its sneaky nature has me on high alert for anything that may insert itself into my experience and bring out this emotion. Reverend Ryan goes on to say, but what if there's another way to look at this? Because we know there always is. Just like all emotions we experience, sadness is part of what it means to be human and what it means to be us. It is an information source, a guide to reveal the tender moments of life. These moments crack us open and, like Leonard Cohen wrote, this is how the light gets in. What if instead of avoiding, numbing, dodging, or hiding from sadness or any experience that brings it to the surface, what if we allow the experience to sit beside us and whisper to us its secrets? It would tell us of the depth of love, the intense preciousness of life, the heartbreak of inequality and injustice, and the importance of squeezing every drop out of every moment. Sadness is often the way shower that points us to authenticity, vulnerability, and an expanded awareness of who we are. The call is to not run away, but to stand bravely in its presence. We might be surprised at all it has to reveal. Obviously, every single one of us, I don't think there's a human being on the planet, at least that's old enough to be aware of this, that hasn't experienced some sadness in some way, shape, or form. Lots of people have experienced deep sadness. I actually went online and I didn't go online actually. I went and looked at the Science of Mind Kindle edition to see what Ernest Holmes said about sadness, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 quotes that mention sadness. At least that's what Kindle found when it searched it. This is what Holmes said. It's I don't know where, it's roughly halfway in the book, a little bit more than halfway in the book, 58% through the book. So because it doesn't give me page locations, it just gives me a location number. Location 6350 out of 11,060. So it's just over halfway through though, 58%. He says, and I'm making this gender non-specific, when a person's thought rests entirely upon themselves, they become abnormal and unhappy. But when they give themselves with enthusiasm to any legitimate purpose, losing themselves in the thing which they are doing, they become normal and happy. Only as much life enters into us as we can conceive. And we conceive of life in the larger sense only when there is complete abandonment to it. Let the one who is sad, depressed, or unhappy find some altruistic purpose into which they may pour their whole being, and they will find a new inflow of life for which they have never dreamed, or of which they've never dreamed. I don't know if it's directly equatable to what Reverend Ryan is talking about here, but I think like anything else, we're human beings. We have a wide range of emotions. And what I've found in life is that when you try to bury them, it doesn't work. They come up in some way, shape, or form. And that when you look them straight on in the face, and I'm talking more like the not uplifting emotions, you tend to actually find that they have something to tell you. It's not always the same thing, obviously, but that's what I find. That when you look at emotion directly and don't try and deny it, don't try and push it down, just admit that it's there. And you don't have to wallow in it, but you can just point out to yourself, look, I feel sad right now. Why do I feel sad? And it's always got some kind of message to tell us. And that's my fairly short message for today. My quote from Ernest Holmes, it wasn't from the Science of Mind textbook, the Affirmations, it was actually just from my search on Google. So I found that was pretty useful. Today's talk by Reverend Jesse, amongst other things, was about the divine feminine. Because, excuse me, because it's Mother's Day, he talks essentially about the divine feminine, sometimes called the creatrix. And what he told us was that the divine feminine, really the subconscious, if you like, aspect of the divine is the creative aspect, and the creative aspect is the feminine aspect of the divine. But what this means is that each and every single one of us has got within us masculine and feminine. We're males and females physically, physiologically, but we each have aspects of the divine. In fact, it was mentioned a couple of times this morning that we often take on different roles, and that the mother role is often taken on by lots of different people in different ways. I'll give you one example. It's a cute example. We have 3 cats, and the first one, George, was about a year old when we got the second one. He's a big guy. When he first got him, he was so tiny. Now he's this huge feline. And then when we got our second one, and they were both rescue cats from a friend of ours at the time, she was really tiny. In fact, she had to be fed with a dropper. She called Elfie. Why is she called Elfie? Because she's got big ears like an elf. And when she was tiny, her ears really looked big and out of proportion with her body. And we were afraid as to how George, the 1-year-old, would take her. Well, amazingly, he just became a mother. He really, really looked after her, just like a mother kitten would. Obviously, he couldn't feed her because he's a male, but he really took care of her, and he just mothered her. I mean, it was just really amazing. So those are my takes today. As I said, I have to go around to see our kids, quote unquote. They're not really kids, obviously, anymore. And in fact, the other kids have just arrived. They're not really kids either. They're in their 20s, I think. Anyway, they're in their early to mid 20s. As I said, they're not kids anymore. That's why I'm reading a bit early today, because I have to go there. God knows when we'll get back. And we've already eaten. They're barbecuing. I don't eat meat, so there's no point in me eating around there with them. But I'm sure they'll have us eat dessert. But Reverend Lisa, if you ever watch this, it's not going to be taking your advice, because Reverend Lisa's advice often is eat dessert first. Eat dessert first. I did it the other day, actually, when I was shopping. You know, sometimes they give out these freebies at Sam's and Costco for you to try. And there was one with dessert, and then there was one with something else. I had the dessert one first. It was cheesecake, and it was good. And it was free. And I got a big piece of it, which was cool. Well, the affirmation: I allow sadness to reveal the tender moments of life. I allow sadness to reveal the tender moments of life. And with that, I'm simply going to say, have a great rest of the day. Reverend Lisa will be on tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And I do believe she and I talked about her readings today. And I believe that what she's going to do in future is going to change it up a little bit, because homes can be boring if you're just reading out loud. So she's going to intersperse it with minor comments. She's not going to take a long time with the comments, but she'll intersperse her reading with some minor comments, which will kind of break up the reading, which will make it more easy on your ears, as it were. So, well, that's it. Until next time, please take care of yourselves. It's been raining again. It's not the torrential rain we had before. However, it does get slippery out there sometimes. Take care. And remember to take care of yourself first, because I know we keep pushing this, and I know it might get old hearing it, but really and truly, you cannot take care of anybody else if you're not in a fit state to do it. Therefore, self-care is incredibly important. So until next time, namaste.